Just to kick off, you guys released an album recently. How's the reception to that been? How has it been since it came out?
I think it's been cool. It was a long time since we recorded it till it came out. I think we recorded it in like 2020, it's October, and then it didn't come out till May 2022. So it was cool to have it actually finally get released and have other people able to listen to it, and like so that was cool. I think like it's cool, and like because I think when you're like you don't really get like a full perspective on what your music is until other people listen to it or something. So it's kind of weird waiting for that for ages, and then it was like the second it came out, it like changed in my head straight away for me anyway. It's like just getting a new perspective on it, sort of thing. Just cool. Positive though.
And also, you've been playing some live shows in Europe, for example, and just had quite a busy summer in general. How has the reaction to your new music been in a live format?
Yeah, I think it's been really good. Played a lot of support gigs this year. We supported the Fontaines in Europe and also in America. So that was kind of an interesting experience. I think those are the longest, sort of longest period of time that we've been on tour. So that was kind of interesting, and you know, being on the road with those guys is always fun. It's always interesting, like meeting people, and yeah, just kind of a whirlwind of experiences all packed into like 3-week chunks. So that was fun. And then we've had our own shows, and you know, we did the album launch tour in the UK. We played around a bit, and part of it is the sort of the traditional way of that we would make music was that we would be constantly writing and playing shows simultaneously. Like those two processes would be constantly happening. And I suppose with like the lockdowns and stuff, in a way it was good because we were left with, you know, only really like writing music as an option. There was no option to play live shows. But the strange part of that is that you kind of miss out on the reaction side of things, where you might write a song and play it live maybe a couple of weeks into its existence. And then from that initial performance, you kind of learn something about the song or how to perform it or what sounds better. And then you take that home and you work on it. And writing songs without that sort of feedback loop of experience was not difficult, but just different. And kind of was the first time that we'd, you know, seen the song through till the end without really showing anyone in a live performance setting. And so like just having the opportunity to play these songs to crowds of people has informed the record to us, even post recording. It's like, no, things haven't changed as far as performance, but it's changed how I perceive it. And I think that's similar thing to what David was saying, in that you never really fully know when a song is finished. I don't know if they ever really are.
Something that I'm really interested in is, because you guys have got such a specific and unique style that's like really eerie and powerful. How did that style come about? Like, how did that develop? And were there any specific bands that influenced that?
When I think about stuff like that, more often than not, what comes to mind is the stuff that we don't want to make, or like the stuff we don't like. Because the bands that we all agree on, all 5 of us kind of agree on and love these bands, are like fairly few and far between. There's some bands that like the majority of us like, or a few of us like bonded over this liking a certain band. But yeah, the like if you're talking about like influences, it's like I think we were really good at not doing stuff that we didn't want to do. So I think it was really clear to us what kind of band we didn't want to be, or what kind of genre or music type we didn't want to make. And then from there, it was like we had these really firm sort of boundaries, like no super dramatic guitar solos, or like no like show many, like I don't know, maybe those things weren't super conscious at the time. We weren't like trying not to do solos. It was just like we had these sort of unspoken rules about what the style could be, and and it actually leaves it quite open to different permutations, because you're not saying what we will do, you're only saying what we won't do, which is it's actually quite a narrow thing to put in place, but it means that you still have basically infinite options for creativity, within a sort of a playground that you've developed, as opposed to saying everything has to sound like this band, which is significantly less options available if you're gonna like dictate, let's be the next Joy Division. It's like we could just leave that to New Order.
In terms of influences, I also want to ask about obviously Ireland and Irish culture, and how does that come through your music, if it does at all, in your eyes? And is there in the sort of wake of there's been a big explosion of some great Irish music recently, and what does it feel to be part of that movement, I suppose, of that scene, I guess you could call it?
I think definitely where we were growing up as well, there's like a lot of, it's like the smallest, no, is it the biggest town in the smallest county? But it's like I think there's like 50,000 people or somewhere around that in like Dundalk, where we're from, and so like we're right between Dublin and Belfast, which obviously like naturally have really big music scenes. Dundalk has that as well, and it was but it was like, because I think it's kind of removed from Dublin and Belfast, it kind of was a lot of people had like a lot of local pride and like kind of just into doing music for themselves and stuff, and not really, or I don't know if that's, I think there's just a lot of bands and stuff in the Dundalk, and a lot of people trying to do music for themselves in their own way and whatever way they wanted to, without like too much in consideration if it's like gonna work for anyone outside of the local scene of people going to gigs or whatever. I think that was like influenced us loads, is just like to kind of, it's like there's just loads of bands and loads of people playing music, and just like it's what like in the right way, I think, as well, just like doing it because they wanted to make music.
It's because we saw you at Dot to Dot in Bristol, and it was a great show. It was really, really good. And it was like your sound live is so powerful, and your use of the instruments, I guess sometimes is like a bit not unconventional, but just a bit like out of the box. How did that like method of playing come about? Was there a lot of thought that went into that, or did that just come very naturally? And how do you find that the crowds react to that live show, like with the very intense sound?
Like the intensity side of things, personally, I've always said that I really enjoy the feeling of like, when you walk out of a really good movie, and like when you're leaving the theater, you're like trying to process your life. Like you're kind of stepping back into your world, because you were kind of gone for that hour or so while you were watching the movie. And like, could be because you related to the characters a lot, or it could be because the visuals or the sound was like all encompassing and was like occupying your brain enough that you kind of took a break from thinking about your bills and your family and your friends. So for me personally, if I can offer that service to somebody in the crowd, if I can obliterate their brain for like an hour and just give them a break from thinking about those sort of habitual survival mechanism bullshit thoughts, that's probably the most value I could add to society at this moment in my life.
Something that I wanted to ask was, with COVID making there be such a gap between the first and the second album, how do you feel that affected the outcome of Heart Under?
I suppose putting the songs together with everyone, as Kaylee wrote the lyrics and all that, so I can't speak from that perspective, but like as a process putting it together, it was obviously there was like some like issues with just physically being in the same room and working on stuff, but I suppose like probably would have been a completely different album if it didn't happen, I suppose. But it had its like benefits, I suppose, in some ways, which kind of have to make if you have any kind of blocks in the way. It was like we kind of got a bit of time to write music on our own after like we'd been kind of like gigging and traveling and stuff like fairly full on leading up to it. And I think we were actually, like, luckily enough, we were planning on having a break that March, and I think like March, April, May, we were like, right, let's like write and record our next album in those 3 months. But then obviously when lockdowns and everything happened, slowed the whole process down, and we ended up just saying, let's just take time to write and figure out when we can record and stuff. So it definitely added to, like, I think one of the things that definitely, from the sound of it, the album and the instrumentation and like the production and everything, I think it definitely added, like, it kind of gave us time and also like forced us to write stuff that was quite like, I don't know, it's all quite like a little bit claustrophobic, and like there's a lot of like layers to it. Like there's not a lot of space in the album, even though there's loads of reverb. I don't know, maybe that's just from my perspective, but it's like there's a lot, it's kind of like a lot of, even, I don't know, I think it sounds like squished together or something.
But that's the thing, is like, I find like music to me is one of the least inspiring things that I can think of for music. And what I mean by that is like film and like visual art and like conversations with people, things that I've seen, things that I've said, things that other people have said, like all those things make me want to run home and make music. So during lockdown, in the absence of sort of those random, normal, chaotic things like a conversation or a chance encounter, or like just the sort of the sameness of your daily activities was really difficult, because, you know, it was like, how do I like change the record? If I'm going to make music every day, how do I continue to be inspired and not just kind of go over the same old stuff? So that was a challenge, I think, which was not obvious at the time that that's what was causing it, but I think that I kind of, it was kind of like, just didn't have anything really going on. So yeah, it was like a lot of the music, like a lot of the stuff that I was making personally was like very ambient and like sort of nothing music, and which is a fun exercise, and it's really like, it's nice to make your own ambient music whenever you're feeling like that, but it's like, it's not great fodder for creativity in like a sort of collaborative sense. Like, oh, Rob, have you got any good ideas for any songs like recently? And it's like, yeah, I've got a 20-minute long sound of a fan. There's a really great fan outside my house, and it makes this really good whirring noise, and I